Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we are going to have a very special guest, Jason Unruhe. It's going to be somewhat of a debate. So this should be fun. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, tweet this out. It should be a debate, an interesting discussion, something like that. So I'm going to put on the opening credits and then we'll bring on Jason.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And welcome, Jason. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask you was shortly before this debate, I think you were unhappy that I referred to you as Maoist rebel Jason Unruhe. What would you like me to call you?
Jason Unruhe, as you have always called me for years.
Okay, so you don't want Maoist rebel in front of your name?
That's the name of the show. That's not my name.
Okay, well, I just thought that was the name of your brand. I meant no offense by it, and I'll actually go and change it right now while we're talking, if you don't mind.
Well, that's kind of undercut by the fact that you put it in quotation marks.
That's what you call your brand. I mean, no offense was made by it. So I guess I just want to ask you a series of questions and give you an opportunity to respond. The first one that I wanted to ask you is back in 2017, when you and I were still on friendly terms. The World Festival of Youth and Students, which is a global communist gathering, was happening in Sochi, Russia, for the 100-year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. And, the communist parties of the world were going to be there. The DPRK, which you're very supportive of, sent delegations, the Communist Party of Vietnam. And I really wanted you to go to that. And I reached out to you, and, the organizers of the festival had seen your work online, the good work you were doing, defending DPRK, defending Cuba and such. And they wanted you there. You didn't really seem interested in going. Why not?
I can't. Technically speaking, I'm in an economic condition right now where given a particular relationship and dynamic that I have with the government, I have to report any time that I leave the country for any extended period of time. And that's not something I can do. There's a complicated situation there. Then I don't know what this has to do with my allegedly childish attacks on you.
Well, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's almost like you're trying to frame me as a person who doesn't care about the global movement. I really see this has nothing to do with what it is that you asked me to come on here for.
No, I mean, it was just a series of things I was going to ask you about. But, I thought it would have been really awesome if you'd have been there because, I
would like to have gone.
Yeah, my social media was at that point way smaller than yours was. And the amount of people around the world that I met who like my work, who recognized me and such, and the communists around the world that pay attention to, what we do as communists in the Western capitalist countries is really important because, so many places in the world, Indonesia, the Philippines, Africa, I mean, they're under the gun of U.S. imperialism. So, whenever there's people in Canada or the United States that are talking against imperialism, talking about socialism, they're very interested in it. And it's very important what we do. And that actually brings me, so there's a document that I've always really liked, and it's called Long Live Leninism. It was published in 1960 by the Chinese Communist Party. It's one of the main documents that Mao wrote to criticize the revisionism of Khrushchev. And I'm actually dropping it in the chat right now so people can take a look at the link. And that my next question is basically, one of the most important paragraphs in that document. It says, the liberation movements of the proletariat in capitalist countries should ally themselves with the national liberation movements in the colonies and dependent countries. This alliance can smash the alliance of the imperialists and the feudal comprador reactionary forces in the colonies and all dependent countries, and will therefore inevitably put a final end to the imperialist system throughout the world. That's what I view my work as doing, trying to align the working class movement in the United States with the people around the world that are struggling against U.S. imperialism. What are you trying to do for that end, to achieve that?
What makes you think America is an ally of these things? The problem lies in what America is, what it has always been, and what, as long as it's America, what it will always be. Whatever vision of America you may or may not have with what it is that you want America to become, that is not what America is. And if that were to be achieved, it would no longer be America. It would no longer be what it is.
Okay, but I'm asking you, though, what are you trying to accomplish in aligning the liberation movements of the proletariat in the capitalist countries with the national liberation movements around the world?
To forward anti-imperialism. I don't understand what the point of your question is.
Well, like, I mean, my reading of that document is that those of us living in Western capitalist countries like Britain or France or the United States or Canada,
yes, I get that part.
Yes,
but I don't understand how
to align the working people of this country with the national liberation movements. And I'm just asking, what are you doing toward that end, or do you not think that's a good thing to do?
It's funny how this has turned into a criticism, and I will answer your question. I will answer your question. It's interesting that you wanted to talk about my quote unquote childish
we'll get
things
to that.
about you. Yeah, it'd be great if you actually did get to that instead of trying to turn it into something where you grill me. This goes back to your fraudulent accusation that you made against me at the beginning of all this, saying that I was pro-imperialist. You know, it was the last message I sent you on Facebook before you blocked me. You said that I was pro-imperialist, and I called you out to a debate, and then you hid for a year.
Okay, well,
but to answer your question, I think
this is very related. Actually, that's why we're talking about what it means to be an anti-imperialist in the Western countries.
I think I know it's the very center of everything that I do. It's the first and foremost and primary contradiction.
So let's talk about it.
No, actually, your thing is about America. That's why you're a patriot.
Talk about that,
and that's why you don't support revolutionary suicide.
Okay, all right. So
exactly.
Answer my question, please.
By allying myself and pushing I'm answering it right now.
Okay.
By pushing the idea of anti-imperialism and not supporting the substance of what America is, not just what America in the form that it takes, but the very substance, the very soul of what it is and what it was founded upon, opposing that, to push an anti-war sentiment, a real one, not a, Trump thought we shouldn't go to war, but it's nonsense because it still went on. Regardless, by pushing the anti-war sentiment, the anti-imperialism, by allowing people to see what the damage that's done by imperialism, and more importantly, to have them understand why imperialism is a natural product of capitalism and why it can only ever be something that it produces. There's no way getting around it.
Well, I mean, as far as Trump, I called out Trump for his criminal murder of Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Islamic Revolution. I know. And Trump brought us to the brink of World War III, and he talked kind of anti-war on the campaign trail, but his presidency was an absolute disaster. I didn't vote for him the first time, didn't vote for him the second time. Now, that said, I mean, in some ways you might be able to argue he's better than Biden, but he still sucked. He was an awful president. So, I mean, as far as that, but I guess my question is, if we're trying to get working people in the Western capitalist countries to see people around the world struggling with U.S. imperialism and struggling against Canadian imperialism or French imperialism or British imperialism, you know, to see the people around the world struggling against imperialism as their allies, how do we do that?
I literally just answered that.
So by telling them about it, like making them feel guilty, is that?
No, by showing them what it is that it's doing, that when they go to war, this is what happens. When their country comes up with another lie and another justification for going to war, these are the consequences.
The consequences for the people of these countries.
Yes.
But you don't think linking it to what these evil corporations, the same corporations tied into wars around the world, do at home, you don't think that's a good thing to do?
I don't necessarily see the exact importance of that. I explained, as I said, to link it to capitalism and why it can only ever do what it does and why the system needs to go.
Well, I mean, I look at the fact that, you know, the same corporations that manufacture tear gas that was used against police brutality protesters in Ferguson, Missouri, manufactured tear gas for Israel, that the police department of St. Louis, Missouri is trained in Israel. I show that that is a way of linking what the Palestinians are struggling against with what the black people of the United States are struggling against by making this, common bond, or showing that, the big oil companies that are reaping in super profits from these high gas prices are also the big oil companies that have kept Nigeria chronically poor for hundreds of years, despite at this point being the top oil exporting country in Africa. I think making those links and showing that the same corporations that are hurting American workers are also the same corporations that are pushing imperialism and devastating people around the world. I mean, I think showing American workers that they have an economic interest in defeating imperialism is our duty, right? I mean, we need to show American workers that imperialism doesn't benefit them.
It does benefit them. That's why imperialism exists.
It does benefit them.
Yeah, that's how rich countries become rich and poor countries stay poor.
Well, this confrontation with Russia has resulted in higher food prices, higher gas.
That's an entirely different situation.
No,
Russia,
that's imperialism. The domination
no,
of the world by big corporations and banks and drug cartels and syndicates. That's
wrong.
what I define imperialism as.
It's not about the definition of imperialism. It's about whether or not the country is being plundered by the United States, which it isn't. It's absolutely incomparable to take a country like Indonesia or Thailand or Honduras and compare it to Russia. That's simply ridiculous. That's an inter-imperialist. I am
comparing it to what is going on in the United States, that the same big corporations that are pushing a confrontation.
Yeah, and I just answered your question as to what the difference is.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I'm going to mute you if you don't stop interrupting me. Now, same big corporations that are pushing for a confrontation with Russia have also hurt American workers. And so opposing this confrontation with Russia and fighting for jobs and schools and housing for American workers walks hand in hand, does it?
Okay. And your point being?
My point being that these imperialists are not patriotic. They are hurting American workers. They're hurting American families. They're setting up a low-wage police state. They've set up a prison industrial complex. They're driving down living standards, and they're also pushing for war abroad, and that we share a common destiny. The working people of the United States, their interest lies in standing with the people of Africa and Asia and Latin America against U.S. imperialism.
Yeah, and let me know when they start doing that.
Well, that's our job, Jason. That's our job.
That's what I've been trying to do. That's what we've both been trying to do. So I don't see what the point of contention here is.
Neither do I, and I don't understand why the hostility. But I guess now, since we
the way you're trying to phrase things,
we both agree, based on what you're telling me, that it is our job as Marxists in the Western capitalist countries to show a common interest between the working people here and their struggle against capitalism and the working people around the world and their struggle against imperialism. We agree on that. So we've established a point of agreement. So that brings me to a number. We're here to talk about your statements, and here we go. This is a statement that you made. I've got the screenshot. I'm just going to add it here to the stream. So I said, one odd pattern that you notice when looking over the history of Asia is that Christianity, brought by European missionaries, frequently got hijacked by revolutionaries, reinvented, and utilized by peasant revolutionary uprisings. This happened in Korea, Japan, China, and elsewhere. You responded by claiming that is historical revisionism.
It is.
Okay, so did the Shimabara rebellion in Japan happen?
And exactly of what relevance is it?
Well, this was in 1637.
1637.
Yes.
We're talking about Marxism. Okay. We're not talking about 1637.
Okay, I'm going to mute you now. In 1637, the people of Japan had an uprising. The peasants had an uprising after being converted to Christianity. They built a revolutionary army to fight against feudalism, and they fought against feudalism. It was a huge civil war. It was a big, well-documented moment in Japanese history that after Christian missionaries had brought Christianity there, revolutionary forces tweaked it and changed it and made it their own. It wasn't the European Christianity. They, as I said, they hijacked it. And they led a revolutionary uprising against feudalism in Japan. You claim that you have some evidence that this is all a hoax. This is a historical fraud. So please go ahead.
Well, now that you've unmuted me from trying to answer you, by the way, I don't really think you're one that can complain about anybody talking over them, considering the last time we did a stream like this, you talked over me. But I digress. As I had already stated, this has nothing to do with Marxism. And that's the point.
I just said this is an odd historical pattern. And
yes, when you were doing this, justifying Christianity, being a Christian communist. Yes, you did, because it was at the same time.
All right. Also, there was the Taiping Uprising of 1850 to 1861, 30 years before Mao was born. 20 to 30 million people died. They were led by the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, which was a Christian movement of peasants that fought against feudalism in China. When Mao took power, he actually built a monument to the Taiping Uprising. It's in Tiananmen Square. This is the biggest civil war in human history, in which Christian peasants in Asia, who were converted to Christianity, they tweaked it and adopted it for their own ends. They had an uprising against feudalism. Now, do you have evidence that this is a hoax? This is a fraud? It never happened?
As I have already said once, and you muted me as I was trying to answer you again, this has nothing to do with Marxism. That may be historically true. May or may not. I don't know. That was not the point of contention. The point of contention is that you posted this in order to justify Christian socialism or building a revolutionary thing around Christian. Because that was what you were going on about at the time. So now you're just simply denying. So now you're just taking exactly what I said, denying the context. Okay.
So you're basically saying that I said something that is historically true, and you claimed it was false because you don't agree with a point you think I was trying to make. Is that correct?
That's not the point you were trying to make, and we're going to disagree on this. And once again, you muted me as I tried to answer.
Yeah, because you're interrupting me.
I'm not interrupting you.
No, I posted a historical fact, and you can believe the Taiping Uprising was very important to Mao, and studying it happened shortly before he was born. And the fact that he built a monument to it after he took power, it was a very important event that's very relevant to Marxism.
Never said it wasn't.
You just said that we're not talking, that this isn't Marxism. It's not relevant because we're not talking about Marxism. I'd say it's pretty relevant. It's very similar to the peasant wars in Germany, an entire book that was written by Friedrich Engels about how the peasants in Germany, again, in the name of Christianity, rose up against feudalism. This is very relevant to Marxism. Marxism is a framework with which you can understand the entirety of human history. So you can study historical events from a Marxist framework. And it is true that many times throughout history, in Asia and elsewhere, and in Europe and in all kinds of places, there are people who, in the name of Christianity, have risen up against capitalism and imperialism. They've hijacked it as their own. That is a historical fact. And I don't know why you would deny a historical fact simply because you don't like something that you think I meant when I said it or something. I don't get it.
Okay, now that took long enough. You're misrepresenting what I said. I'm not saying these things weren't of any historical significance. I didn't say that. I did not say, no, I did not. No, you know, as I had already clarified, that this was not about that. This is about modern day and you pushing a Christianity view. I am not denying these things in the past.
Yes, you are. You called it historical revisionism.
No, I am not. I am saying specifically right now, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, actually it is. If you say something's historical
revisionism. No, that's not what I'm saying. I am not saying that these things didn't happen.
Well, then why did you call it historical revisionism?
I didn't. In the context, you're changing the context of what I'm saying.
I mean, your tweet is right there.
You're changing the context of what I'm saying.
Everyone can see what you said. It's right there, Jason.
You dishonest piece of shit.
I talked about historical facts.
You're completely misrepresenting what I'm saying,
my friend.
Because I just said you're misrepresenting what I said. Yeah, I think that is a reason.
You're misrepresenting what I said.
That's exactly what Bosch did to you.
No, I said historical facts,
and that was not the context that you were saying.
Revisionist. You denied history basically because you don't agree with me.
I am saying right now specifically, I am not denying those things happened, nor did I intend to say that then. I was specifically referring to modern day and Marxism. Yes, such and such individual. Okay, so you say, I don't believe you.
Okay, so you claimed that me talking about a historical event was false because you believe that
no, in the context that you attempted to
about something now. What is the context? I'm talking about history.
The context, which I have already said 3 times previously, was you were using this as a justification to push Christian Marxism.
No, I'm using this to talk about history for the same reason for the same reason that Friedrich Engels talked about the peasant wars in Germany. Right?
I'm sorry, but there would be no point to me denying this. It doesn't even make any sense in that context.
Then why did you use the term historical revisionism?
Because I was specifically referring to.
I mean, you didn't think to like Google this before you accused me of making up and lying about history?
I didn't claim that you lied about what happened.
Apparently, here's some historical revisionism. Apparently, Christianity was communist.
Not in the context that you were trying to frame
by murdering and raping missionaries, which I didn't say. I said it was hijacked and utilized. And also, South Korea was the only predominantly Christian country, not others. The magic of Maupin thought. So it sounds like you're saying that the only place this could have possibly happened is South Korea, which is not what I said. I just recited to you the Shimbara rebellion. I just recited to you the Taiping uprising. You didn't think to like Google this, do a little research before attacking me?
Because they weren't relevant to the point I was making. It really looks
in this tweet. It really looks like you're trying to say that I just made this up or I lied. That's what. No,
you're misrepresenting what I'm saying.
Well, I think people can look at it. It's right here on the screen, and they can decide for themselves.
No, you're trying to weasel your way out of it.
No, I'm
trying to weasel your way out of it by misrepresenting what I'm saying. You know specifically that I am talking about Marxism because I have told you multiple times.
Is this a fake screenshot?
No.
Okay.
I didn't claim it was.
So I'm not lying about anything you said.
Yeah, you are lying.
Right there. No, I'm not.
You are lying. You're lying about the context.
Oh, boy. Okay. But speaking of that, since we are talking about Christianity, now I'm going to take it off the screen here, but I think everyone's had a chance to see it. So, you know, I'm not trying to falsify.
Well, the tweet's still there.
Yeah. So there you go. All right. Now, you made a video. Oh, let me adjust this. You made a video. I like it's better when we're in the full thing here. You made a video on March 26th, 2022, called Caleb Maupin's Racist Pandering. And at 5 minutes and 3 seconds into the video, you referred to this book, Jesus is a Socialist, that I published. And you claimed that in this book, I advocate a theocracy and that I say that, you know, people that that people are commanded by God to follow me. Can you tell me what page that's on? I've got the book right here. So
no, it's not specific wording. It's in the substance of what's being said.
So is it all the quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Is that where you got that from?
Now, can I answer that, or do I have to?
No, go ahead, please. I'm curious where in this book I ever.
Okay, cool. Now I'm going to answer the substance in what you were trying to do, because what it is that you're trying to do is that Jesus would want you to be a socialist, which I find problematic considering that you would first have to show any evidence that he actually existed, but that's besides the point. And because you have crowned yourself the savior by, say, the CPI,
how did I do that?
I will explain exactly how you did that. Only the CPI can save us. I'm trying to answer. Could you please mute yourself? Seriously, mute yourself. To answer your question before you interrupted me again, like the hypocrite that you are, because you have posed yourself as only the CPI can save us and only the CPI's line is correct. Yes, that's why you started the party, and that's why you attack literally everybody else. Nope. Okay, Center for Political Innovation and Organization, whatever it is that you want to call it.
We have members of the Communist Party in our group. We have people from
I got to tell you something.
We have people.
The Communist Party doesn't want anything to do with you, and frankly, neither does anybody else.
All right. Okay, we're gonna. This isn't gonna work.
Okay, so now you're refusing to let me answer.
Okay,
so you're refusing to let me answer. Let me answer.
Go ahead and talk.
Because you have positioned yourself as the savior by using this, and then saying I'm Christian, and Jesus would want you to be a socialist. Therefore, you got to follow me, because other people really aren't pushing the Christian Marxism. That's what you're doing. You're appealing to people, telling them that, oh, I want God, or pardon me, God would want you to do what I'm doing, and I'm telling you it, so therefore you follow me. This is very similar to how a reverend or a priest acts. That's what I mean. And I love the obnoxious faces. That was exactly like Bosch did.
Are you done?
It's strange that you're just acting like him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're using a very common logical fallacy called telescoping, where you're saying, well, you said this, and this means this, and this means this, and this means this, and this means this, so therefore, and that's not the case. First things first, CPI is not a party. There are people in many different political organizations that are members of the CPI. We are very friendly with Jackson Hinkle. We are very friendly with Haas. We're very friendly with Peter Coffin. We're very friendly
I wouldn't
with
brag about that.
all kinds of different political forces. I've never claimed that CPI, that I'm the savior, that CPI is the one true way. And in fact, the whole reason we started it as a think tank rather than a party is to get out of that kind of childish LARPing and actually try and have an institution that can push Marxist politics in a way people can understand it. CPI is not a Christian organization. I would say the majority of the group are atheists. We have some Muslim members. We have some Jewish members. And I'm in the minority as someone in the group who's a Christian. And in fact, The very first book we published was a Muslim socialist book by Gaddafi. This pushes Islamic socialism. So the very first book we published was not a Christian book, it was explicitly a Muslim book. So the notion that we put a book of quotations from the Bible and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Eugene Debs and Daniel DeLeon and others out there in order to make the case that we're trying to establish some kind of Christian theocracy is simply poppycock. I mean, it just doesn't add up. I mean, do you disagree with that?
To answer your question, it's not telescoping because I'm not making a series of things. I'm taking the collective whole of what's being said.
Well, the collective whole of what's being said is we put out an Islamic socialist book.
Yeah. By the way, publishing somebody else's work doesn't really count as publishing a book.
And I mean, we published Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in here. The majority of our organization are not Christian,
and?
So I'm
and yet you keep but again,
yes.
when I made the criticism, you were at the time pushing the whole Christian socialist thing.
So what? And there are Muslims in our group who
that's
push the Muslim
how it's
thing.
relevant.
And there are atheists in our group who push the.
No, and you're not letting me answer.
I mean, and how do you get from that I think I'm the savior? Because I quote the Bible and make the case that if you're
okay,
a Christian,
can I answer that?
You shouldn't support capitalism.
Oh, okay,
how
so
in the world
you're not going to let
do
me
you get
answer
from
that? Okay.
How in the world do you get from that I think I'm the savior?
Because the way you've positioned yourself within the organization, not to mention as well as the fact, as was adequately demonstrated by Yankee Tanky, the amount of whatever Maupin says is true, whatever Maupin does is right. And there's no room for anyone to disagree with you.
There's plenty
so
of room
you
for
have
people to
set
disagree with
yourself
me.
up in that way.
Yeah, well, that's just utterly false. And
no,
you know,
that's
I don't
not
think,
false.
Yes, it is.
I'm sorry. Does he have a grudge to pick about something else? Is he lying?
Who?
Yankee Tanky. You remember he was the person who left your organization and came out against you?
First of all, most of what was put out there was personal grievances he had with another member, which I'm not even going to address in this venue, which aren't really relevant. And second of all, a number of his videos have been removed, which is probably an indicator that he no longer wants that out in the public sphere and no longer stands by such comments. So I'm not going to indulge Yankee.
Or you threatened him.
No, I didn't.
I don't know that you did, but I wouldn't put it past you.
You just said I threatened somebody, and now
I said, or you threatened him.
Or okay, all right. Wow, this is really, really great. So based on the fact that I talk as a Christian socialist and I put out this book after publishing a Muslim book, after publishing a number of other writings in a majority non-Christian organization, you, based on that, claim that I believe to myself to be the savior. Right?
No, you don't believe yourself.
You're accusing me of being David Koresh. You're accusing me of being Reverend Sun Young Moon and some kind of like insane, I believe you used the term cult, all based on the fact that I put together a book of the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Do you think that other people watching might think that's a little nuts?
No, because the way you've positioned it is that if you disagree with you disagree with Jesus.
No.
Yes, that's literally the
Jesus
whole point of it.
In thousands of years ago. I'm using this book to make a point that the idea, which is widely believed in among normal people in the United States, that Christianity and Marxism are complete opposites. This is wrong. And that if you're a Christian, you can be a socialist. And in fact, there's many things in the Christian teaching that overlap with socialism. I think it's important that we put books out this. When we published this, there was a member of our organization who's from a Southern family. He bought 25 copies and gave one to every single member of his family. He said, I've been waiting for socialists to publish this kind of material. There are people who got this book and they said, I have been waiting for this for years. For years, I have felt like I can't talk to members of my family about socialism because they have this religious block. They say, oh, socialism's anti-God. Thank you for publishing this. I have gotten so much positive feedback for pointing out that the Christian religion and Marxism are compatible. I don't see this as trying to frame myself as the savior of humanity. Maybe you like got this book confused with another book or something. I mean, did you read this book?
Yeah, I also liked the original version by Charlotte Schnook better.
Who?
Charlotte Schnook, the one who actually collected all the quotes that you used in the 90s.
Who?
The one that you plagiarized your book from.
Who did I plagiarize from?
I've said the name Charlotte Schnook twice.
Okay, and how did I plagiarize from her?
Well, literally the basis of what you're saying, how it's Christianity is compatible with her. It was from her atheist writings in the 90s.
I believe it's from a lot of other people said it before she did. That's a very widely common thing to say, right? If you go back, there's a long history of Christian socialist movements. In fact, the
And
word
yet the organization
socialism,
is so very, very close.
in fact,
Regardless.
I think, we quoted from the same Bible, if that's what you mean. Yeah, I did compile these quotes from the Christian Bible. So, I mean, she probably used the same quotes as I did. But, Keaton's in the chat. He compiled the quotes. He helped me compile them. I had other people go through them. I'd be curious to look at Charlotte's book and see if she used similar quotes. But I didn't plagiarize from Charlotte. Did she have Martin Luther King Jr. in her book?
Yes.
Oh, she did? Can you have the title of this book that I allegedly plagiarized from?
Just Google Charlotte Schnook, Schnook. Jesus was a socialist.
Okay, well, all right. So let's pull it up here. I'm going to. How do you you said SHNOOK?
SCH.
SCHNOOK.
Yeah.
Jesus was a socialist.
I know because I know her personally.
Okay, so she had the same title. I see an angel fire came up. Jesus on economics, Luke 12. Do we have Luke 12 in here? No, I'm just looking. You're saying that basically because I used the same quotes from the Bible that she did, that somehow this is plagiarism.
Seems very much like it to me.
Okay, well, I
keep claiming it's your work, but there's nothing original in there.
And Jesus on war, we didn't use that quote. I'm seeing Jesus on public prayer. We made a decision not to go there. I see Jesus on punishment. We didn't go there. And I'm also not seeing a book. I'm seeing angelfire.com, Cello, Fantails, Jesus, the Socialist HTML. I'm not seeing a book.
Yeah, it's from the 90s. It was a very small. But
it would be used. I don't see it on Amazon. I see
because it was published in the 90s in a very small atheist group.
Was Jesus a socialist?
So you can't find my books on Amazon either. It doesn't mean they don't exist.
Well, yeah, but I'm not understanding. So you're alleging that because we use the same verses from the same Bible, that somehow we did that. And I just read you that at least on the Angel Fire, she's using completely different verses and making completely different points.
She's making most of the same points. She just has points that you're not making.
You can look at Schnook's work here, and you'll see that she talks about punishment. We didn't decide to go there. She talks about public prayer. We didn't go there.
You do talk about the same ones. She talks about ones that you didn't.
This is what you're alleging that I'm plagiaring from. I'm posting the link. This is all I found from Miss Schnook, and it's in there. And people can look at it for themselves and judge whether or not this is plagiarized. So there's the link. People can look. People can take a look. Folks, click on that link. Jason is claiming I copied that link, and you've got this book right here. And people can decide for themselves whether or not I'm using it. Now, I don't see any quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. on this page of Charlotte Schnook. You're claiming there's a book that was published that also contains quotes from MLK?
Is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so
I haven't read the book. The book can't really be found.
But you haven't read the book?
Well, no, because it was a very small.
So how do you know I plagiarized from it?
Because it's basically ripped from the website too.
No, there's many places. If you type Christianity and socialism, you can find these quotes many, many different places. The Bible's been around for a long time. And
many of those are directly plagiarized from her work as well.
What, the Bible is plagiarizing her work?
No, dum-dum. You know that's not what I said.
I know. I
said those other people that have used them.
I think anybody who would look through the Bible and try to make a case that there can be overlap between Christianity and socialism is probably
of course there is
the same quotes. And I'd be curious now if she quoted Martin Luther King Jr. You might have a case to make. That you said you haven't even seen this book
because the book is out of print.
Yeah, but you haven't even seen it. So you're claiming I plagiarized from a book that you haven't even seen?
No, I said from the website. I specifically just said that.
So you're claiming I plagiarized from this website, which I will post in the chat again, which makes points that we don't make,
of course not, because you didn't cover everything that she did.
Yeah, and we're making different points than she's making. And we're, quoting the same
No, you're
Bible,
making many of the same points. She's just made some that you didn't.
Yes, because we're quoting the same Bible, Jason, and we're trying to make the same
I know. I went to Catholic school for 12 years.
A few minutes ago, you said there were quotes from Martin Luther King in it, and now you've admitted you don't even know about that. So you just lied on.
I know because I talked to her. She said she put it in the book.
Okay.
I know Charlotte Schnook personally.
I'd like to see this book. I'd like to see this book. Did she have an essay by Keaton Mansfield in there? Did she have the Eugene Debs essay that we included?
No.
Okay, because I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not
I don't
overacting.
see why his
You
essay
know,
has anything to do
we
with
did
it.
at the first draft of the book, we included the full Beyond Vietnam speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, but we discovered that we couldn't republish that because it's copyrighted. So we had to chop it up into quotations. So we did that. We used some different quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but I really, so we've gone from I think I'm the savior because I published this book to I've
No, you're
plagiarized
oversimplifying
this
it.
book. I mean, I've called, what have I been called so far in this debate? Piece of shit, dumb. Where's the anger coming from, Jason? Can you tell that?
As I have already answered that question, you know that I wasn't referring specifically, like
But
when I
where's the
said
anger
people,
coming from?
when I
The
said
rage.
other people, because you're a liar,
How am I a liar?
because you're a narcissist and
I'm
a
a
goddamn
narcissist.
fascist.
How am I a fascist?
Oh, you mean aside from being the ally of Alexander Dugin, aside
Dugan's
from
not a fascist, and I'm not his ally. So I'm neither of
yeah,
those.
Alexander Dugin is a fascist.
No, he's not.
The guy
Have
who
you ever read
literally,
the
the guy who, yeah, I did
Okay,
read it, by the way.
I'm going to mute
Okay,
you now
so
because
I can't answer once
this is
again.
an important point. The fourth political theory that Dugin invented is inherently anti-fascist. It is contrary to both fascism and communism. Dugin was a founding member of the Russian Communist Party. He left with a split, and there was the National Bolshevik Party, which was led by Edward Limonov, who was openly gay and wrote novels, was a punk rock novelist who was considered very liberal in Russia. And then Dugin left it, and he has something called the Eurasian Movement. Now, Dugin opposes both fascism and communism. He considers them to be Western ideas. And I don't agree with Dugin. He rejects historical progress. I don't. He rejects communism. I'm in favor of communism. He is against gay marriage. I'm for gay marriage. He's against abortion. I'm for abortion being legal. Dugin and I agree on Western capitalism and imperialism being a danger. And that's why I was happy to sit down with him. And I'd be happy to sit down with any anti-imperialist because that is my job. As we talked at the beginning of the debate, my job as a person living in Western imperialist countries is to build an alliance against imperialism. And so I sat down with him, but I don't agree with him. And he's a postmodernist. I believe that there is objective reality and one truth. He says that in Russia, there is a different truth for Russia and he has views that are very, very contrary to mine. So I'm not Dugin, and Dugin isn't a fascist. So both of those points are way off, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you muted me while I was explaining how he is a fascist. You've completely misrepresented his book. Actually, right out in the book,
I'll go get his book.
Right into, he says, he literally calls for pushing fascism using using fascist and socialist symbols. Dugin was also part of an anti-Semitic nationalist group, the Pamyat, in the Soviet Union. Pamyat used the same version of the Russian flag that you do in support of Russia in your meetings. Oh, I see that when I get the answer, you walk away so you don't hear it.
I'm trying to get my copy of Dugin's book. I was going to read to you from
okay.
it. I don't know where it is. But first of all, what version of the Russian flag are you referring to?
Well, I have a picture of it here. It's the one that's the black, blue, red, with the eagle in the middle and the writing.
Yeah, that's the flag of the Donetsk People's Republic.
Really, because here is a picture of a guy. They were waving the exact same one way back.
Yes, that's the flag of the Donetsk People's Republic. That's the flag that they chose.
Oh, yeah. So just waving a flag used by a fascist party.
No, used by the communists and progressive Russian-speaking people of the eastern regions who declared independence. That's actually what their flag looks like.
You do realize that he's literally saying in the fourth political theory, he's pushing for fascism, saying to use fascist and socialist symbols.
He spends pages denouncing fascism. He talks about how fascism, because it's inherently racist and because it's tied in with the Holocaust, etc., has been discredited. That's basically what he says. I mean, I've read the passages on this,
and yet the substance of what he's saying is
I'm not him. So it's like, there, again, you're doing this.
No, I didn't say you were him.
Talk to Dugin. Dugin said this, so therefore, and it's like,
no,
it's like,
can I answer
not
that?
What you say he is.
Can I answer that?
To him one time. I don't agree with him, so your logic doesn't add up.
No, can I answer that? Yeah? It's not because you talked to him one time. It's because you were palling around with him. It's because you want, and let me answer. And because he was so nodding along with you when you were talking about the bankers who were influencing things. As a Marxist, you would know that it's not a conspiracy by the bankers to ruin America. No, it's just capitalism. It's doing what is profitable. It's not something that's specifically targeted as trying to destroy America, which, by the way, you did specifically say in that thing, and that he was nodding along with you.
Okay. Now, if you read Lenin's book, Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, Lenin makes clear that one of the defining aspects of imperialism is the dominance of finance capital. And Russia, as a country that was devastated after the fall of the Soviet Union and economically plundered, they have rebuilt themselves up, and they are fighting against the same big banks and corporations that are destroying the lives of American workers, and that we have a common destiny. And that, yes, there are big banks and big corporations tied in with big oil companies that have a financial interest in trying to crush Russia. That is basic Marxism. That is what Lenin wrote about in Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. This is a pretty honest understanding of things. So the fact that I talked about how imperialism, which is defined by Lenin as the rule of the world by trusts, cartels, and syndicates, the dominance of finance capital, and I talked about struggling against it and made a speech critical of the Western left for failing to do so, and you interpret that as somehow me wanting to kill all Jews or something, that's ridiculous.
Well, you muted me right in the middle of it. I was trying to explain it, and I had already explained the difference between the two. I never said bankers weren't ruining the country. You keep going back to that, which is something I haven't denied.
No, you just attacked me for saying that.
No, I attacked you for the way that you phrased it. You dog whistled anti-Semitism by saying it that way. You knowingly did. It's hard to claim that you're not being a fascist when you keep allying yourself with right-wing movements and ideas like the Freedom Convoy. And can I answer, or can I mute you?
Okay. You're saying things that are untrue, but continue.
No, you did. You openly supported the Freedom Convoy in Canada, which was a fascist movement. I literally played the video of the guy who leads the thing talking about great replacement, talking about how there was a conspiracy by people and to get rid of
Wall Street, a Maoist movement.
No.
Well, the RCP went there, so it must be. You know,
the RCP didn't lead it.
One guy showed up with Nazi flags one day.
No, not one guy. The leader of it.
So
the leader of it was an anti-Semite.
What was the issue at hand in the Freedom Convoy? Fascism? Were they marching for fascism in Canada?
Essentially, yes. They were calling for Justin Trudeau. Okay, I'm going to answer, because you weren't actually there for it, and that's why the majority of Canadians didn't support it.
Sikhs
led because yeah, I know they had a few Sikhs in there too. That wasn't the point.
Okay, but they don't count, right? They're fascist.
That wasn't the point. That wasn't the point. The guy who ran it, the guy who led it, the guy who was the chief financial operative for it, he was the guy that you sent the donations to, was saying, yes, this is about great replacement, using the term Anglo-Saxon race, because it's a way of getting around the censors. If you say white, then you get censored. Again, I am trying to answer, and you're interrupting me. Supporting that, full well knowing that they were asking for the Liberal Prime Minister to step down, holding the country hostage in order to do so, in order to take their hand-picked person from their far-right group to take up the position of prime minister. That's not even just a process. That's almost an attempted coup. And it was entirely right-wing. Their arguments were entirely right-wing. Most of the companies, the truckers that were involved in doing the whole thing were actually business owners. They weren't, the vast majority of them weren't even regular working people, because one got to wonder how they were able to do that instead of working. So no, you literally misrepresented the entire thing by your statement just there, and you openly supported a guy who was supporting fascism and calling for great replacement theory.
Yes, this guy.
You supported his movement.
Oh, telescoping again.
That's not telescoping. You literally supported his movement.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's scoping. That's only one.
Are you done? May I respond? All right. So you're claiming that because I supported a movement of truckers, of which one leader you claim, I mean, I haven't seen the evidence, you claim that he's saying all these things about the Anglo-Saxon race, because I supported a movement that had a guy in it, therefore I'm a fascist. So we've gotten from I sat next to a guy who's clearly not a fascist and I must be a fascist, even though I disagree with that guy who is himself not even a fascist, to I support a movement of people around vaccine mandates and other issues, that there was somebody in it that you claim he said something, which people play this game where everything's a dog whistle and all of that. I really doubt those Sikh truckers there were marching for the Anglo-Saxon race, Jason. And you can disagree with me about the trucker convoy, but to claim that I am somehow a fascist because I see a group of people in motion protesting against the state, against Justin Trudeau, and I sympathize with them, even though I'm in another country, that somehow makes me a fascist. That is completely dishonest. Go ahead.
Your review of what I just said completely misrepresented what I said. It's just one guy. No, it's the leader of the entire thing. He did say those things. The videos of him talking are not only available, they're available on my channel as well. I uploaded them as an example of that. That was a fascist movement. It also was pushing, and it was also Patrick King, that's his name.
Okay, I've never heard of him before.
You've never heard of the guy who ran the protest?
Because I saw a group of
people
then
you clearly don't know what you're talking about.
I saw a group of people in motion around this issue of vaccines, and I felt that as a communist, it is our duty when we see people in motion. Have you ever read the Communist Manifesto, Jason?
No. It wasn't the people in motion.
It wasn't.
It was a nonsense claim that vaccines were some kind of a conspiracy, and that people were trying to.
Was saying was that vaccines are a conspiracy. I thought it was about.
They were pushing. They were pushing conspiracy.
The Anglo-Saxon race.
I am trying to answer you. They were saying more than one thing. He was saying more than one thing. It was about the vaccines, and they go, "Oh, they're trying to kill us with it," and then going on about
everyone there was saying the vaccines were trying to kill them.
I am trying to answer you. You are misrepresenting what I say. You misrepresent in reviewing what I say, and then say, "Well, what did I do wrong?" You are completely misrepresenting the fact that he is the leader. It wasn't just because you supported it. It's because this guy was in it. He's the leader of it. So his opinion of the movement and his running of the movement is kind of actually really important.
So you're telling me this
the rest of Canada recognized that it was a far right-wing movement. It was getting money from the Conservative Party of Canada.
By far right-wingers.
That was published.
No question about it. But the issue at hand...
Why are you supporting a far-right movement just because the masses want to do it, which it wasn't even the masses?
The issue at hand was the vaccine mandates, was it not?
That was part of it.
Part of it. Oh,
but if it was for the vaccine mandate, and it was solely for the vaccine mandate, then why were they asking for the Prime Minister to step down?
Because Justin Trudeau presided over that and has been presiding over Canada not doing well and working families suffering. And the right wing has hijacked the anger that a lot of working people in Canada feel, just like they're doing here in the United States.
And again, this movement really wasn't regular people. It was largely business owners. It was funded by right-wing extremist groups. By the way, the Globe and Mail, famous Canadian... No, of course you don't know about that. You don't seem to know anything.
All right, well...
Okay, you don't know all the things that were put out in the Canadian media upon investigating.
Now, and I'm going to mute you. All right. In the Communist Manifesto, this is what it says. In short, communists everywhere support every revolutionary movement against the existing social and political order of things. In all of these movements, they bring to the front as the leading question in each the property question, no matter what its degree of development at the time. Meaning that when working people are in confrontation with the state, and when they are out there rallying against the ruling class, that you support them. But you bring forward communism. You challenge the backward ideas they may be espousing as they do it, but you support them when they're in a confrontation with the status quo. That is my understanding. And we made the mistake. We should have done this with the Tea Party. And we should have done this with Occupy Wall Street. And we should have done this with Black Lives Matter. If our job is to exist in the Western capitalist countries, to get working people to understand they have a duty to align with the people of the colonized world that are fighting for their independence, it should be our job to see working people who are in motion and try to get them to understand that they have a common enemy with the people around the world that are struggling against imperialism. So, not a Canadian, never went to a single one of these protests, but I saw a group of people rallying against Justin Trudeau, who's backed by the big corporations and banks and is the face of Canadian imperialism at this time. And I thought, okay, the issue is the vaccine mandate, something that even though I'm vaccinated, I'm opposed to. I think that supporting their right to be in the streets and opposing the government taking their money and shutting them down in a rather undemocratic and harsh way, I think that might be the right thing to do. And no, I don't agree with this Patrick, what's his name, who's the leader of it. And I don't agree with the one guy who showed up with the Nazi flag. But when people are in motion, it is our duty to go and support them and bring them away from their backward ideas towards socialism. They should be rallying for socialism against Justin Trudeau, not for this right-wing stuff. Would you agree with that?
That quote isn't the problem. I'm not disputing what is said there. I'm disputing in what the truckers were. They were not a revolutionary movement.
They were
They
not
were a
against the
bunch.
status
They were a
quo.
bunch of conspiracy theory nutbags who were overwhelmingly supportive of QAnon, who already believe that Canada is a socialist country and that Justin Trudeau is a communist because allegedly son of Fidel Castro. That quote, I'm not disputing. What I'm disputing is the substance of what the truckers were and what they were doing.
So you don't feel you have any responsibility to change what they think? You don't think that when there's a group of people that are in a confrontation with an imperialist government who have backward ideas, you might have a responsibility to go to them and get them to change how they see things?
If you think that's what you're doing, you're insane.
Well, I wasn't doing anything. I was here in the United States.
They were literally a reactionary movement. Okay, so you can support a completely reactionary movement, one that was looking to essentially pull off a fascist coup if they could.
I think the issue was vaccine mandates.
No, they were also asking for the prime minister to step down and be replaced with one of their own handpicked.
You know, and I saw a communist literature table at Occupy Wall Street, so it was clearly trying to establish dictatorship of the proletariat. You know, it really blows my mind. Fox News has been doing this kind of crap to left-wing movements for years, and suddenly they turn around and do it to right-wing movements, and you're fine with that. One Nazi flag, one guy on social media said something that you say is the great replacement, so therefore all these truckers are Nazis, all of them are fascists. No, it's not about the vaccine mandate. It's actually a fascist plot to seize the government. Oh, and now we have to back Justin Trudeau, and if we don't, you're a Nazi. This is how nuts mainstream leftism has become.
Well, you just lied by saying I was trying to defend Justin Trudeau, which is not true. Also, it's not just one guy, as I have said repeatedly, a point that you keep refusing to acknowledge. It was the leader of the movement, and you can't claim the leader of a movement's opinion isn't significant. And second of all, there were a multitude of issues there. They are fascists. They did. It was on their website. They were asking Trudeau to step down and be replaced by their own handpicked person who was a far rightist. You cannot claim that was not a reactionary movement or, oh, it's just one guy. Literally, the demands of the group were to have a far rightist put into power undemocratically.
And it didn't occur to you that you might be able to change that by seeing a bunch of working people are in motion and have these backward ideas and showing them that you oppose the status quo too, but the answer is actually socialism, not their reactionary bullshit?
To answer your question before you cut me off again, you really like to do that, mute me when I'm trying to answer you.
Yep.
Fucking coward. You're the one muting.
Where did this rage come from? Seriously, Jason.
You deliberately misrepresenting what I'm saying. No, you repeatedly lying. Yes, you are lying.
I don't have the anger that you have.
Yes, you do. I didn't say anything about that. I didn't say anything about you being angry.
Now, November 26th, 2021, you claim that people who want to kill. Oh, he rage quit. Well, he rage quit, folks. We lost Jason. That was fun. We had him for almost an hour. There you go, folks. There you go. That was fun. That was fun. Well, listen, folks, glad to have you here. And since he's not here to defend his statements, he chose not to, we will go ahead and read off some of the things that Jason has said about me. On November 26th, 2021, Jason claimed that I'm willing to work with people who, quote, kill homosexuals. He never presented any evidence that I advocate killing homosexuals. Furthermore, he claimed on November 27th, the following day, November 27th, 2021, that me and Haas were basically, he said we were trying to, quote, frame me for CP, that we are trying to frame him for child pornography. He never presented a shred of evidence to back that up either. This guy has a record of deception, and I will give him credit. Oh, are you back? You want to come back on, Jason? Oh, you want to come back on? You still want to defend
yourself? My internet cut out.
Okay, I thought it was a rage quit.
Okay, by the way, I actually did present evidence that Haas was trying to set me up for that.
But I
put it right on my Twitter. And what do you know? Exactly, the screenshot of the people in his Discord server.
I'm not
talking about it.
I'm not in his Discord.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking
about
what was
Jason.
I'm talking about what's it. Whoa,
your tweet talked about me. You accused me of trying to frame you for child pornography when I did no such thing. Yes, you talked about me. We have the date. We have the screenshot. You talked about me. Here, we'll even put it on the screen. You made a crazy allegation against me without any evidence. Yes, you talked about me.
Jesus Christ, you just cut me off every time your back is against the wall.
My
As I
back is not
said,
against the
as I
wall.
was trying to
You
say,
accused me of
please
framing
calm
you for
down.
child
Where's all this
pornography.
anger coming from?
Yes.
Can
yes.
I answer
I'm
now?
a bit annoyed
Is that
you
okay?
accused me of something
I
like
tried to show you the evidence, but
Okay.
you wouldn't let me talk.
Okay, keep talking while I pull up the screenshot.
As I said, with the screenshot that was sent to me by some from in his Discord, where they were talking about the plan, not child pornography. The plan was to make it look like I was trying to do sexual talking with an underage person, which, by the way, those fake conversations, a few days later, a week later, actually were put out by Hawes's people.
Okay.
And if I am to believe that this, there's what do you mean no? What do you mean no evidence? You're literally showing the evidence.
Never mind, it gets worse. Haas/Maupin, I am Maupin, that is me, are going to try and frame me for CP, which is child pornography. And you have moved the goalpost about 6 times.
No, I haven't. You're lying.
You first, this is what you said publicly on Twitter. Never mind, it gets worse. Haas/Maupin are going to try and frame me for child pornography. Now, first you said, well, this was Haas who was doing it. And now you said it's somebody in Haas's server who did such a thing. This has absolutely nothing to do with me. You publicly accused me of a really nasty, evil thing that I would not do to somebody who I don't like. And I had nothing to do with what went on in Haas's server. You're not even alleging that Haas did this even. Now you're alleging that somebody in Haas's server did something. And you threw my name into that? I mean, are you ready to apologize for that?
Are you ready to show the actual evidence that I put on Twitter and not just this?
Your screenshot. It has nothing to do with me, according to you.
There's more screenshots.
Then how
you're not showing the one that I put on Twitter. Well, this is one of them, but this is not the one I was talking about.
You have evidence that I myself.
Let me answer you. That same on. I fucking saw that. You just tried to mute me again.
Slip of the hand. Go ahead.
That whole block of individuals, it was literally a screenshot of the conversation that was going on in his Discord. If I am to believe that you don't know what's going on with him when you're so closely linked, I call you a liar. Both of you were trying to discredit me, and these fake conversations were released, and nobody bought it.
Okay.
It was laughed at, and it was done specifically through Haas's attack squad, RSTG or RTSG or whatever it is, because I screenshotted all of the accounts. I screenshotted all of the accounts that were spreading it. All of them made 1 month before the accusation came out. All of them associated with Haas's group.
Okay, so people in Haas's Discord server did something, and you not only blame Haas for that, but you also blame me personally for this. All you have are some screenshots of some anonymous people. I don't even look at my personal Discord servers. I hate the Discord app. It's annoying. I stay off of there, and there's a bunch of shady people on there on Discord who you have no idea who they are, and that's why I stay off of it. And there's a bunch of shady people. I get all kinds of weird inbox messages. Oh, did you see what Jason said? Oh, did you see what Boss just said? I try to stay away from this stuff. But based on the fact that you have screenshots of somebody in someone's Discord server, again, telescoping, Jason, someone in a Discord server said this, so therefore Haas did this, and Haas is friends with Caleb, so therefore Caleb did this. Do you have a shred of honesty in your body? I mean, you accused me of something very, very, very serious here, and there you go. I mean, it's beyond me, man. Because somebody in Haas's Discord did something, I'm personally involved. I mean, that is ridiculous.
As I was trying to answer you when you muted me again, because am I supposed to believe that you don't know anything about what Haas is doing? Like you don't coordinate these attacks on people. I have seen the tweets come out.
I don't coordinate with Haas.
I do not see now when I finally get a chance to talk, you talk over me.
Yeah, because
I don't see. There you go again. Can you shut up so that I can answer?
All right, you got a minute. Go ahead.
Oh. I don't believe you for a second. I have no reason to believe you. I have every reason to believe that you are a part of it. No, I don't have proof. But that's that's not even really the point for me. I know that the both of you are greasy bastards who do stuff like that. The guy who says poppycock is laughing at someone else's choice of words. Really?
You got a minute, man. Go ahead.
Besides the point. I don't believe for a second that you're not involved in it. You guys coordinate things in communications with each other all the time, the same way I coordinate things with other people in my group. So I don't believe you. You can say you did nothing, of course, but I don't believe you. I know you are a lying two-faced snake. Like, I know because Mason Steiner told me how you were cutting me up behind my back when you were pretending to be my friend.
All right. Are you done?
Unless, of course, you're calling Mason Steiner a liar.
Are you done?
Oh, you're not going to answer that. Oh, okay.
No, right. I'm going to respond when you're done because I don't want to be interrupting you.
Yeah. The answer is no. Right. There's no definitive proof that this, but I have no reason to believe you.
Okay. Well, Jason, I'm going to speak now. Jason, I have a full-time job as a reporter. I am trying to set up the Center for Political Innovation as a socialist think tank that can educate people about socialism. I have a lot on my plate right now, and one thing I do not have the time to do is get on Discord servers and come up with childish conspiracies to frame you for crimes. I do not have the time to do that. And while I like Haas, and Haas has spoken at CPI events before, there are some pretty big differences between us politically. For example, I don't want to go into detail, but I think he says the USA is already socialist, stuff like that. There's points that we just don't agree on, right? The infrared community is separate from the CPI community. Now, there's some overlap, but Jason, I really don't have the time or the interest to sit on Discord and try to frame you up for things that you haven't done. And the fact that you believe that because I talk to Haas sometimes is pretty ridiculous. And you didn't say, I think it's possible. You accused me of committing a very serious crime against you on social media. And you admit you don't have evidence of this. You just know that I associate with Haas and that I'm a greasy liar or whatever you just said. Actually, my hair is pretty dry. I'm kind of the opposite. I have like dry scalp. I use like moisturizing shampoo. It's not exactly greasy, but I kind of am the opposite of greasy. But aside from that, maybe I eat too much greasy food like onion rings. But aside from that, you claimed that I was committing a very serious crime against you without evidence, simply based on the fact that I talked to Haas and someone in Haas's community allegedly did this. Do you have any ethical concerns about making such statements in the public sphere?
To once again answer what you said, because you just misrepresented what I said. I didn't say that you personally sat down and planned this. That's what Haas is for. I said you were a part of it. I didn't say you were solely the person responsible for it. So once again, you've misrepresented what I said. And I don't believe that you guys just talk sometimes. You have to be in frequent communication. I don't believe you. I am calling you a liar. I have already explained my position. That's not what greasy bastard means. You should look it up. And yes, I don't believe you. I know that you are a pathological liar. Like accusing me of being pro-imperialist. That is why I took that position. And you were going to respond.
Well, before you pivot away, I'm going to read you your tweet. It doesn't say, I am suspicious that maybe Caleb might be involved in something. It doesn't say, I'm suspicious. No, it says, Haas/Maupin are going to frame me for child pornography. Jason, I can unequivocally say here before the entire world that I have never had anything to do with trying to frame you or any other person for child pornography. And that I think it's highly irresponsible to make such extreme allegations in a public sphere without at least checking on them. You could have tweeted out, I'm suspicious that this is going to happen. You could have tweeted out, there are rumors going around that this is happening, but you said that this is a whole undisputed fact. And that's irresponsible. Now, I know you don't like being called Maoist rebel, but my understanding is that the N in MRN stands for news. And throughout this debate, one common theme that we are seeing is you putting out false statements, like, trying to say that things like the Shambara rebellion didn't happen, trying to say that I'm a fascist because I talked to somebody who's not a fascist, who therefore I don't agree with, but even somehow I'm a fascist. You continue to say things that are not factually accurate because you have a feeling, because you don't like Christianity, it makes it okay to deny history. Because you don't like the Canadian truckers movement, me in the United States saying that they're right about vaccine mandates makes me a fascist. You continue to say things that are not true these huge leaps that you make. And if journalism and news is what MRN is really about, that really blows your credibility. I mean, are you telling me on here that MRN reports things that are not factual? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, so you just took the time to rehash everything I said and misrepresent it again. I never said these historical things never happened. I claimed it in the context that you were trying to claim that it was somehow related to socialism was wrong. We already went over that. So you're lying about what I said again.
Nope.
I never said, oh, because it was a fascist movement and you were supporting a fascist movement. And I'm saying specifically here, right now, unequivocally, you are a liar. I do not believe you. I have no reason to believe you because you have pathologically lied to me. That's exactly what you do. Right when you muted me, I was about to say, you're about to mute me as I was trying to answer.
All right.
All you've done is literally repeat back what I've said, misrepresenting it, making positions I never claimed with points that I never made, and then say, oh, you see, he's wrong.
Okay. Well, let's pivot to, I think, the final topic that I want to speak with you about, and then we can conclude. You made a video. I'll pull up the date because I want to be accurate here, unlike some people. That you made a video May 30th, 2022, and you said China never tried a peaceful transition because it wouldn't make sense.
In the socialist terms, no.
Okay. Well, I'm about to pull something up on the screen here for you, and I want you to tell me that this didn't happen. Basically, are you ready? Hold on. Gotta love.
Is it some small obscure thing that nobody even knows about because history's forgotten it because of how irrelevant it was?
Well,
I'm guessing it was.
I don't think so, but maybe that's your opinion. Chiang Kai-shek asked Mao Zedong to parley in Chongqing.
So,
after World War II, the Chinese Communist Party asked to form a coalition government, and with Chiang Kai-shek. Did this not happen?
So he made an offer that he knows that he wouldn't take.
But that doesn't matter.
No, your point is completely invalid.
No,
it is because this is something that would never be accepted by a Marxist.
Wait a second.
No, so this doesn't make any sense.
How does it not make sense?
Your claim doesn't make any sense.
Now you said that China
Mao would not.
That
wouldn't be changing anything.
Okay.
That wouldn't be.
Speak. You said China never tried a peaceful transition to socialism, and I have presented you from the Daily Worker, a communist newspaper, reporting that they did. But that's not the only piece of evidence I have that they did this. I am going to read you from the works of Mao Zedong, August 16th, 1945. Quote, "The Communist Party of China is firmly opposed to civil war. The Communist Party of China has persistently advocated the formation of a coalition government. The carrying out of this proposal can prevent civil war, but there is one precondition: strength. If the people unite and increase their strength, China can prevent civil war." That is Mao on the eve of civil war, with Chiang Kai-shek trying to stop it and trying to form a coalition government. Is that a fabrication? Go ahead.
It's not a fabrication. And again, you cut me off again when I was about to answer you. No, I mean, a coalition government is nonsense because that wouldn't make it socialism. That wouldn't be a peaceful transition to socialism. Why would Chiang Kai-shek agree to a sharing of power to do the opposite of what it is that he's doing? But you're saying that if Mao had accepted, they would have transferred to a socialist society and he would have gone along with it?
No.
Sorry,
I'm reading
well,
you.
Then the whole thing doesn't make any sense.
I'll explain to you why it's relevant. Remember Long Live Leninism? Remember that document that we talked about? I'm going to read to you from this document in which Mao calls out Khrushchevite revisionism. This is what he said, quote, "It would be in the best interests of the people if the proletariat could obtain power and carry out the transition to socialism by peaceful means. It would be wrong not to make use of such a possibility when it occurs. Whenever an opportunity for peaceful development of the revolution presents itself, communists must firmly seize it, as Lenin did, so as to realize the aim of the socialist revolution. The question is not whether the proletariat is willing to carry out a peaceful transformation. It is rather whether the bourgeoisie will accept such a peaceful transformation. This is the only way in which the followers of Lenin approach the question. So is Mao a dirty, rotten revisionist because he says, if we can have a peaceful transition, that's better? I mean, is that a crime? That's all I've ever said, is that it would be better to have a peaceful transition. I don't advocate violence. I advocate a peaceful transition. And if there is a violent revolution, that's because the capitalists won't allow a peaceful transition. Jason, it really grinds my gears, because my whole life, people have been telling me that communists are murderers, communists are terrorists, communists advocate violence. But everywhere in the world that there's been a communist revolution, it's only happened. The violent revolution has only happened because we tried to organize peacefully and our democratic rights were suppressed. Ultra-leftism, punchism, Blanquism, terrorism have always been rejected by revolutionaries. Why are you trying to help the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI shut down peaceful revolutionary organizations that are trying to organize peacefully? Mao clearly in that document is saying, if a peaceful revolution is possible, that's what we want to do. There's nothing revisionist about saying that. That's called scientific Marxism, Jason. And when it's not possible, the people have a right to defend themselves. And the revolutions of history have been acts of self-defense when people had no other choice. We are not bomb throwers. We're not punchists. I think you said revolution is when you take a gun and start shooting. No, revolution is when people start organizing in their communities for their rights to make a better country, and the grinding gears of imperialism and capitalism get in their way when they have no other choice. Violent revolutions only happen because the capitalists block a peaceful transition. And this is a historical fact that is obscured by the propaganda against communism. And I don't know why that makes you so angry. Go ahead.
Okay, you cut me off literally when I was in the middle of answering you. That quote by Mao was a statement. It was a politically pushed statement. It wasn't sincere. It's like when the U.S. says, oh, wait, I know, please shut the fuck up and let me answer, and keep making your cute little Vosh faces. That it's just like when they say, you can't shut up, can you? I know you're a great talker. I am trying to answer you.
You just called Mao a liar? You just said that Mao was lying. He wanted there to be bloodshed in the streets. He wanted there to be killing. He didn't want a peaceful transition. He was just a psychopath who wanted to kill. That's what you just said. Mao was lying. It wasn't a sincere statement. No, it was. The Chinese people didn't want a civil war. Chiang Kai-shek and U.S. imperialism forced a civil war on them. How dare you?
I can't even fucking answer. I can't answer. You keep muting me as I'm trying to answer.
Faces and you got angry.
You're talking over me when I'm trying to answer you.
Go ahead and answer. Tell me about how Mao wanted violence and killing.
No, Mao didn't want it, but he knew that's what it was going to come down to.
That's
that was
what I said.
I'm trying to answer you. Shut up. You're not letting me answer. It's a political statement to trying to make it look like he was trying to avoid war when he knew very well that it was going to be war. Everybody knew it was going to be war. There wasn't going to be any peaceful thing, but he was trying to make it look like that he was pushing that. That is done by leaders from every end of the spectrum. Yes, let me answer, please.
The imperialists forced a war. There's another statement by Mao called Chiang Kai-shek is forcing civil war. That's what he said. Yes, Mao preferred a peaceful transition, and it wasn't possible because Chiang Kai-shek wouldn't allow it. But your notion that somehow advocating a peaceful transition is revisionist goes against everything I just read you from Long Live Leninism and from Mao.
You fucking cut me off when I'm answering you again, and I'm just going to leave. Because you're a fucking coward. You're interrupting. You're constantly interrupting me and then cutting me off when I try to answer. I was literally answering you when you muted me.
Go ahead and answer.
First of all, my personal opinion is that that's bullshit and Lenin was wrong. But let's say these are things that Lenin tells people to do that he knows aren't going to work. This is the path we take. And then when it gets proven that there is no peaceful transition, then you go to violence. That's the point. And frankly, I've really had it with you cutting me off and preventing me from answering you. And then talking over me when I'm trying to answer you. Because that's the kind of dishonest piece of shit you really are. If this was the last thing to be talked about, I'm calling you a liar. You're a fucking pathological liar. So if that was the last subject that we had to talk about, I think I'm going to go.
All right. Well, now Jason has called Mao a liar and said Mao didn't want a peaceful transition in China. And Jason also said that Lenin said the exact same thing that Mao said. But I noticed that Jason doesn't call Lenin a dirty revisionist. He doesn't call Lenin a dirty liar. He doesn't call Lenin a sellout, pathological liar revisionist. If Jason had been brave enough to stay on here, I would have asked him, why is he so triggered by the notion of a peaceful revolution? Why is he so triggered by advocating a peaceful transition to socialism and not glorifying violence? And why is he so committed to violence and the notion of a violent revolution? Why is he so committed to that he would get angry like this? I mean, that he would accuse Mao of lying. Like, this guy wants violence. I don't get it. Why does he want violence so bad? And I kept asking him, where is this anger coming from? Right? I mean, this is amazing. We got an hour and 15 minutes before he ultimately rage quit. I think he rage quit twice, but he said his internet went out. But that was quite a debate, folks. That was quite a debate. Jason, I don't know if you're still watching. But I just want to make a closing statement. And if you're still watching, this statement is directed at you. And if you're listening, I hope you hear this. If not, so be it. Jason, we use at the Center for Political Innovation the image of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was the president of the United States who led the country during the U.S. Civil War. And during the U.S. Civil War, slavery was defeated. The moment in which slavery was defeated and the slaveholders who were aligned with the British Empire and wanted to keep intact their barbaric criminal system of slavery was defeated, that was a great moment in American history. Harriet Tubman became the first woman to lead U.S. soldiers into battle. We had great abolitionists like Frederick Douglass and Joseph Wedemeyer and others. It was a beautiful coalition, the second American Revolution to defeat slavery. It was a great moment in American history when slavery was defeated. And over the course of the U.S. Civil War, Abraham Lincoln changed. Abraham Lincoln did not want to abolish slavery. That is a fact. Abraham Lincoln really, really wanted to keep slavery intact. He just wanted to not have the federal government accommodate slavery. He felt that slavery was wrong, but he didn't want to mess with the South and their slave system. He just didn't want it to expand. And during his debates, during the Lincoln-Douglas debates, Lincoln said some pretty racist things. He said, well, just because I'm against slavery doesn't mean I believe black people are equal, etc. He said some pretty racist things. But Lincoln took office, and the slaveholders took up guns and tried to overthrow the government. So Lincoln was forced to build a coalition with the abolitionists and with Harriet Tubman and with Frederick Douglass and with the labor unions. And in the process of building that coalition, Lincoln changed. Lincoln's views shifted. W.E.B. Du Bois, the great Marxist scholar, writes about this. And even though Lincoln came into office trying to hold off a civil war, trying to not abolish slavery, he was forced by historical conditions to actually abolish slavery. He was forced by historical conditions to align with slave revolutionaries like Frederick Douglass, to align with Marxists even, and have Joseph Wedemeyer, a Marxist, be a leader of his military, have August Willock become a brigadier general in his army. Struggle changes people. It's material conditions that lead to great revolutions and great moments in history. And in the course of those events, people change. There's a lot of those truckers that were marching against the vaccine mandates, not because they're racist or they're Ku Klux Klan or they're Anglo-Saxon supremacists, because they're mad about the mandates and they're mad about the economic conditions that they're facing. And my belief is that those truckers can change also, that the intervention of revolutionaries to show them that the problem isn't socialism, the problem isn't just Justin Trudeau, it's the whole capitalist imperialist system, that Russia and China and Venezuela and Iran and Cuba are their allies against the global monopolists and imperialists. The intervention of revolutionaries can be key in changing people. When contradictions exist in society, it is the duty of revolutionaries to intervene in those moments and push a revolutionary message. And in that struggle against the slaveholders and their uprisings, revolutionaries intervened, and Abraham Lincoln changed by meeting with Frederick Douglass, by aligning with the labor movement, Abraham Lincoln's views shifted over the course of the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln, by the time he was leaving office, was sounding quite revolutionary because he was at the center of an anti-slavery coalition. This is how history works. Mao and the Chinese Communist Party, first they worked within the KMT government. They were part of the KMT party. They didn't even have their own party. They were a faction within the KMT party. But then violence was perpetrated against them, so they fled to the countryside and they waged People's War. Then Japan invaded, so they entered a military alliance against the Japanese invaders. And then after that, they still tried to have a coalition government. But when it became clear there was no other choice, it became clear that Chiang Kai-shek was going to slaughter them and murder them, the people of China had no other choice but to defend their liberated territories and their land reform by having an armed revolution. And that this is how conscious revolutionaries operate. They go where the struggle is. They go where confrontations are existing. They go where working people see their interests as being contrary to the state. They go where working people are in motion, and they organize them, and they lead them, and they give them political direction. And this is how history works. And in order to actually understand this, you have to be able to talk to people. You can't say that you're against America and you want to destroy America. You can say, no, we love this country. We love the people of this country, but this country was founded on slavery. This country was founded on the genocide of the native people. This country was founded in an impure way, and it's cursed. There's a curse hanging over U.S. society, and that we need the country to be refounded upon new values. We need the country to be reborn on new values of compassion and brotherhood and solidarity. That's what ultimately the job of Marxists is to do. Our job is to intervene when the people are in motion. Our job is not to trail behind them, gesticulating and criticizing. Our job is not to stand in the way and oppose them. Our job is to march at their head and lead them. And it's only a matter of time before the American people are rising. The gas prices are through the roof. The food prices are through the roof. Homelessness is rising. They're criminalizing homeless people across this country. And at this point, the American people are angry. They're angry at Wall Street. They're angry at the Pentagon. They're angry at the big banks and corporations. And our job as conscious revolutionaries is to find a way to get the American people who are angry at this government, who are angry at the big banks and corporations, to understand that they have a common destiny and a common ally in the people of Iran, the people of Russia, the people of the Donetsk People's Republic, the people of Venezuela, the people of Nicaragua, the people of China, and that the struggle globally against U.S. imperialism and the struggle domestically against big banks and corporations and the Pentagon is one struggle. The people of the world must unite to defeat U.S. imperialism. That is our job. And we won't do it by saying we want to tear down and destroy the country and we hate everyone here and they're all a bunch of Euro settlers. And we won't do it. We won't do it by going around advocating violence. No, we should advocate a peaceful transition to socialism. We should get people to understand we want to make a better country. And we should get people to understand that Wall Street is their enemy. And just like Lincoln changed over the course of struggle, I think Jason can change. My hope is that Jason will overcome whatever his antisocial stigma is and start getting involved in an actual movement. Jason, if you're watching, I would like to formally invite you to the Center for Political Innovation's 4-day national gathering that we are having in Kansas. You're invited. As ugly as you were in this debate, as much as you cussed me out and called me greasy and shitty and all these awful things, I want to invite you to come to the Center for Political Innovation's 4-day national gathering, where revolutionary-minded people from all across this country are going to come together to try and figure out how we can win the American people to socialism, how we can do our job. Read Long Live Leninism. It's our job to advocate a peaceful transition. It is our job to win the working people of the United States, to see that they have a common destiny with the people of the world struggling against U.S. imperialism. We want to do our job. We take this seriously, Jason. This isn't an internet LARP. This isn't performative politics. This is serious. People are hungry. People are dying. People are suffering. I've been around the world. I've met with real anti-imperialists around the world, and I take this job very, very, very seriously. I think about the people of Yemen that are getting bombed with U.S.-made bombs pouring in from Saudi Arabia. I think about the people of the eastern regions, Donetsk and Lugansk, that have been bombarded by U.S. imperialist allies and the Azov battalion in Ukraine for so long. I think about the people of South and Central America who are fleeing because their countries have been devastated. But I also think about the working people of Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan and Arizona and Texas and how they've been devastated. And I see the potential for an alliance, for an anti-imperialist alliance. And if you're serious about Marxism and you're serious about socialism, put the weed down. You hear me, Jason? Put the weed down. Put the hallucinogens down. Start connecting with other anti-imperialists and start doing your job. Start doing your job, because this is getting serious. You know, Bob Dylan, he has that song All Along the Watchtowers. There's a line in the song where he says, "Let us not speak falsely now. The hour is getting late." I don't like Bob Dylan, but I think that speaks to the moment we're in. We are headed for a real crisis in U.S. society. The time for fooling around and waving airsoft guns on the internet is over. The time for burning American flags is over. The time for advocating violence is over. The time for not being serious, the time for LARPing and acting like a child on the internet is over. We need to get out of the movement to the masses. We need the working people of the United States to understand that they're under attack and are ready to fight. We need to get them to understand that only socialism can save America. Only socialism can make their lives better. Only socialism can make a better country. And that by aligning with the people of the world and by fighting for a whole new America founded on new values, tearing down racism and colonialism, tearing down the prison industrial complex, getting rid of the Pentagon, rebuilding this country on new values, on new foundation, that by doing that, we can make their lives better. It's time that we took history's challenge seriously. It's not a fashion statement. It's not an emotional way to be antisocial and get mad at your parents and get revenge. It's about life and death for people all over the world and here in the United States. And it's time to take this seriously. It's time to take this seriously. And Jason, if you're watching, I will forgive you for every nasty tweet you've made about me. I will forgive you. But I'd like you to stop, please. Stop accusing me of trying to frame you for child pornography. Stop accusing me of being part of some fascist conspiracy. Please stop repeating the lies of the synthetic left. I just want to say this, that Jason, you can be a child on the internet and wave your airsoft gun around and talk about your being so revolutionary, but I'm in a very different position than you. My Twitter has been labeled Russian state-affiliated media. My PayPal has been banned. I've been banned from PayPal. And I can't even get into some of the other things that are going on. But I'm in a little bit of a serious situation. And I'm trying to build a peaceful socialist educational organization here in the United States. That's what I'm trying to do. And in order to do that in an effective way, I can't look like a fool. I need to be responsible. And you're in a very different position. And you can get on the internet and act like you want violence and act like, well, Mao was just lying. He wanted there to be killing in China. You can do that. You can do that all you want. But some of us are serious, Jason. And the stakes are a lot higher for those of us who are serious. And so we're going to act differently than you act. We're going to phrase things differently than you phrase things. And it's not because we're sellouts. It's not because we're phonies. It's because we're serious about this. And we know the crisis is coming. And pretty soon the American people are going to be in motion against the ruling elite. And if we don't march at their head and lead them, somebody else is. You're complaining about these truckers in Canada and who's leading them. Well, my question for you is, why aren't you leading them, Jason? Why aren't you the one leading them? Why is socialist politics not leading that movement in Canada? That's the question I've been wrangling with for years. And at the World Festival of Youth and Students in Quito, Ecuador, and then later the one in Sochi, Russia, I met with communists from around the world. And in very polite terms, they said, get your shit together. Stop acting like nuts. Build a base among the population. Socialists in America have failed. And in order to not fail, and in order to build the kind of movement that can save the United States from the pending crisis, we have to change the way we're acting. We have to get out of the movement to the masses. We need to get the American people to understand that imperialism is their enemy, Wall Street is their enemy, and the people of the world are their allies. And that's how I'll end this debate. So, Jason, if you want to come to the retreat, you're invited. You can send me a message. You know how to reach me. And yeah, that's really how things end. I think there were some super chats that came in, but I don't think any of them were questions. So I think we'll cut it off here. Thank you, everybody. I might be online later tonight. It just depends. So thanks, everybody. It's been fun. Talk to you soon.